Alexis Morgan, how are you?
Oh my gosh, Matt, it's just always so good to be here with you and your Godzilla, thing behind you.
God.
I do love saying it.
I'm really happy that you're here. This has been, like, you and I have obviously, we're both, you're the state PTA president. I'm the legislative rep on the state PTA. We're both pro-education, and what a mess we find ourselves in. And especially, this is particularly upsetting to me. I'm not like sitting home crying, but it's particularly upsetting because, education got hammered this legislative session. Like, it really got held down and got the hell beat out of it. And then to be coming to the end of the legislative session and have so much turmoil within the school, not just like outside forces on the school, but within school districts. It's like, oh, golly, man, I just don't have it in me anymore. But you're here. Talk to me about this.
Oh my gosh. So I'm glad that you gave that perspective, because I do think that a lot of people are feeling beat up after this session. People are tired. They're, exhausted, all the things that you're talking about. And when you talk about, education getting beat up, I will say, I'm not saying that I feel this way, but I do think a lot of people got what they wanted this legislative session, clearly. There's a percentage of Idaho that felt like, hey, I'm getting the things that I want out of education. And, like if we're talking about vouchers, the voucher bill passed, it's a very small percentage of Idaho. I know that it's like been out there. Governor Little said, hey, I want to collect some data on how, the House Bill 93 made its way through the House and then the Senate, and it passed and it sat on his desk, and there was a lot of noise about it. And so he said, he reached out to people and he reached out to the state and said, hey, you can call in and let me know, vote yes or no if I should, vote for it, if I should sign this bill, or if I should veto it. And I think it should be noted that almost 40,000 people called in. And of that almost 40,000 people, 86% told him no. They said, no, do not sign this. No. 86% said, we want you to veto this bill. And he signed the bill. And so, like I said, there's a small percentage of people that were happy with that. But I would say an overwhelming, as we would say in Idaho, way more than the supermajority said no. So yes, public education, and even and that means a lot of different things, feel beat up over this session.
Can I make a point? You said some people got what they wanted. To be clear, my kids go to public schools. Mm-hmm. I'm happy with the public schools. And so over the legislative session, I, as a consumer of public schools and a resident of Idaho, I also got what I wanted. I'm not making a position on legislation, but like from an education standpoint, Idaho in the last 3 months has delivered for my family. I have 3 boys, and again, they go to Idaho funded schools, and like, I don't have any gripes about those schools at this point,
Yeah. So, and I will also say things like there was the same senator who brought forward, who co-sponsored House Bill 93. She brought forward a bill that would have repealed the Empowering Parents Grant. And like, as a private citizen, a parent on social media, as the Idaho lady, I went on and just like made a reel about what that would mean. Not that you should want that, or not that you shouldn't, but here's what this information means. And the community of the Empowering Parents Grant reached out and said, no, that's not what we wanted. And so that bill died. So, that bill died this session. So that was like, good news for that community. And I guess there were some things that were good. I know that Superintendent Debbie Critchfield, her update on graduation requirements, I'm waiting to hear from her chief of staff, but it looks like all of those are going to go through. And I've had a conversation with you about that. And I have also had a conversation with her chief of staff, Greg Wilson, on my podcast, Our Kids, Our Schools, an in-depth look at what that will mean. And there was some compromises that were made on that, on those grad requirements, specifically around digital literacy and speech. It looks like they're probably going to keep both of those. So that's a good thing for our students. The updated graduation requirements to say, hey, we're living in 2025, so let's update these requirements. So I would say that's good, right? I think that the Superintendent Critchfield and her team are working on those different things. But to your point, for me as the state PTA president and someone who, as a parent, my kids are in public schools, it did feel heavy. There have been some moments that have felt really heavy. And one of the things that I've really tried to do is to move forward. You and I have had a conversation with like this idea that, sometimes it's going to feel like, the reality is that we're going to have more failures than we do successes. But that doesn't mean we quit. That doesn't mean we stop. It means we continue to move forward. And one of the ways that we've been doing that at the state PTA is to say, you know what, we're going to partner with other associations around the state, and we are going to have town halls, because we know that vouchers are now in the state of Idaho. What does that mean next? What can we do as a school community to make sure that we are informed? So there have been a couple of town hall meetings that I've been invited to that have been really cool. And it feels very energizing to be around people who want to learn about what's going on. They want to be informed. They want to be educated. And that makes me feel that fills my cup in a sense, right?
Like hopeful. It's hopeful. It's like people actually want to know. And I think people really do. I mean, obviously, we all know what the world was like pre-2020. And like, for instance, where I was living at the time, the individual that was the president of the school board at the time had run unopposed for 20 years because people just, there was apathy. Apathy was just like dripping from the community. They're like, nobody cared. Nobody wanted, like, ugh. And since 2020, you see a new populist wave of like, hey, we want to be involved, right? It's more of like, we want to say. And then of course the answer to that is, okay, well then you have to be involved. You have to become educated. If you want to say in this and you want people to really like get into it with you, come understand these things. And I think people are responding. Not everybody. Some people want to sit on the sidelines and have their voices heard with zero input or zero effort. But other people are like, okay, no, hang on. I actually want to know, like, what's the mechanism of the school boards? Like, how is education lined up? That's how you and I first got connected well over, like a year and a half ago, which is you put out this podcast like, hey, this is how education is aligned or designed in the state of Idaho. We have this state board of education. Superintendent Critchfield the superintendent is the only elected person on that. The other people are appointed, like all this way down. It's like, wow. This is awesome. Like I can find out about how this is designed. And then if I like it or I don't like it, I can get involved any which way.
100%. And it's something that when you reference 2020, I heard a parent say, we all know that was like in the middle, like the start of COVID, and, school districts were responding in different ways. And there were a lot of people who responded in really, I think, contemptuous ways and ways that I don't agree with. But one of the things that a parent said once, when all of a sudden it was as if parents woke up in this one school district and they didn't like how their board was responding, right. His words were, like, it was from his perspective that parents did this to themselves and to their community because they had failed to pay attention for years.
Right.
And he said, in this moment, we're waking up and we're going to take action and we're going to do something about it, because as a parent, it's essential for me to know what's going on and to be involved in that way. And I was like, hey, that's really cool. Like, I was brand new to the school community. I hadn't been having that experience in my other school community. So to kind of come in and have that experience with other people, it was like just like really eye-opening and to really understand, their process and different things like that. So I think that it is an opportunity for people, you and I are trying to get information like directly into the hands of people.
The people,
like the people, like we, the people, like we, you and I are trying to get into the hands of the people in our communities. And you know what, Matt, like you and I have had this conversation, like, I think it's working. Like what we're trying to do, what we're trying to offer, it's like working, especially like what you're doing. Like it is working and I love it. Like I love having information out into the hands of people. Like it's awesome.
I love it. I love that you and I can meet. We can do a show. We can talk about these things. And thousands of people are going to find out about it. And this is it. Like, we can hate the fact that people are on social media, fine, but we can also acknowledge, like, okay, if done properly, you can communicate. And it takes years to build those platforms, as you and I both know, but it's like, it's working. Like even the evolving nature of this show that you've been intimately involved with. It's like, listen, it's taken years, but even in the last like 4 months, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this works. Like, here we go. Yeah. And it's really cool to be able to build that for the community. Right. And here you are, the state PTA president, being able to be on this and talk about your perspectives.
Yeah, I love it. It's really great.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic.
And shout out the Idaho Lady, which is your Instagram handle, and your podcast, Our Kids, Our Schools. Fantastic.
Oh,
Big
thanks,
fan.
Matt. Thanks.
Oh, thanks. No big deal. Listen, I know we're short on time today, but obviously one of the big wrangles going on right now is what's going on with West Ada. Talk to me about this.
Ooh, yeah, this is a big one. And I will say, as Idaho PTA does have a PTSA at that middle school. So there are...
And a PTSA is parents, teacher,
student.
Okay,
association.
Great. Wonderful.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because students can start to be involved in the PTA at the start of 6th grade.
Sure.
So,
great.
That's why they've set it up that way there. So what that tells me though is that, there could have been a PTO there too. Not all schools have those, but what that tells me is that like there's a parent group that is that's involved and working to be partners with their school.
Right.
And so I would say that like one of the things, and I posted about this on social media, is that we as a school community, we have to start having conversations that are uncomfortable. We have to have courageous conversations because there are things that we need to talk about that might be, that are challenging to work through, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be addressing them.
Right.
So I do know that like when we're talking about what's happening there and that phrase, everyone is welcome here, I will tell you what one parent told me whose kids go to that school. And it was really profound to me. So the idea that, when kids go from 5th to 6th grade, that's a pretty big jump. Like you're leaving elementary school and you're going into middle school. And Miss Anama, who is it's my understanding, she's a 6th grade teacher. When parents walk into her classroom and they are doing the open house and they're getting ready for their kids to be a part of that experience, it actually makes parents feel good to see that sign, everyone is welcome here, on the wall, because I think what that makes them feel like is that this place is a safe environment for their kids too, just like what they felt in elementary school. And there is a mindset, I think there is a mindset of like, gosh, when my kids go to middle school, they are leaving this cocoon of an elementary school and they are going, it's a little bit more out into the big dark world a little bit. And so there is some angst there from parents. And so I will say that sign is something that signals to, I think, a lot of parents that this is a classroom teacher who is going to love on those kids and who's going to teach those kids just like they experienced in elementary school. Additionally, what I've also heard is that Miss Anama is not the only teacher who put their sign back up. It's my understanding that there are other teachers in that school building who feel the exact same way as her. She's not a solo here. She represents, I think, a large group of teachers who are saying, we want to create environments where our kids feel loved and safe and where they feel like they're going to get an education that represents what the community feels. And so that's something else that I've heard. And additionally,
could I say
please.
one thing?
Mm-hmm.
I had one of the representatives in a week or two ago who was talking about this particular person is very, very conservative and very much, I don't think he looks very fondly upon public schools. And one thing he said that really gave me pause is he was like, listen, we're in the situation with the teacher's hands being tied with regulations and it's the teacher's fault. And I was like, huh. How do you mean? Mm-hmm. And his position was they went along with these policies. They went along with these things. They should have been standing up, fighting against the cursive regulation or fighting against this regulation or fighting against this standard or this test. And that, again, like that's his position. I was like, that's really interesting. Mm. We also have had an attack on unions and being able to collectively represent and bargain in this state. So it's like, okay, if we're going to put the onus of the debacle we're in on teachers, on the shoulders of teachers, and then we're also going to make it hard for them to represent themselves, this is a huge thing, right? So to hear you say, hey, she's not the only one. She's just the one that stood up. It's like, apparently that's the dynamic that all sides are looking for, which is somebody has to stand up and represent it. Right now, again, like the specifics of this set aside, fine, like totally set them aside. But the value of having somebody who risks criticism and risks gaining the ire of the community to stand up and articulate what they feel is right, that is really, really important. I mean, you've done that before. I've done that before. Not like this gal. Like, and we designed our life around that, right? Like we both made podcasts and we put ourselves out there. But this is a 6th grade teacher who's like, listen, I'm not a podcast host. Like I'm just a 6th grade teacher. Like I'm not designed for this, right? But to hear that there's a group of people there that felt one way and they had somebody who was like, I'll take the hit. I'll go to the news. I'll do this. Right. And again, the specifics aside, like we need those people. We need people that'll stand up and have the difficult conversation and engage in that. That's beautiful to know.
I'm going to respond with a couple of things. One, I'm going to tell you that I actually don't think it's a productive way to point a finger and blame a particular group for why we are where we are. Meaning,
sure.
Okay. I'm going to say that's like,
you're not getting pushback on this side of the table.
Like, I'm going to say, that's not to say that we can't see where something maybe originated or have theories on that, but to say that, when we're in the middle of these things and then to point at these two, you're the reason that this is the problem. Now, I am going to say that, as the president of Idaho PTA, we are a nonpartisan organization, and our role is our mission is to make sure that every child's potential becomes a reality by engaging and empowering families to advocate for all kids. And for me, that's Idaho kids. And so my desire is that people can come to the table. And to your point, I think there's some varying stories out there. I know that you have had the district admin on your podcast. I know that you've invited Miss Anama on your podcast, but currently she has just, had her conversation with other news media outlets.
Sure.
And
I wouldn't come on if I were her. You don't know me. I'm a crazy rando dude. And now I have the burden of having talked to the district first, even though I invited her on before the district came on. I totally understand. Like, I'm a random guy with apparently a bad hat and a bad hoodie.
Oh my gosh. And I'm going to tell you that I think, and I want to say this, like publicly, because I think it's really important to note. You, Matt Todd, on the ranch have simply you have offered an invitation. And it's not on you as a podcast host that the West Ada School District is not engaging with the other media. That's not on you. That's on West Ada, and that's on the other media news outlet sources. Now, that's not me pointing my finger. That's me saying everyone is an adult and they have the ability to make choices. And those are the choices that they are making. And it is inappropriate in my mind for a news media outlet source, and I know exactly what you're talking about. The news media outlet source criticized you on their show. And I think that is wrong. That's not what this community needs. We don't need to be. Those are contemptuous conversations. And I would say to that news media outlet source, and I would say to anyone, Idaho PTA is having a More Social, Less Media, a community summit on Saturday, April 26th. And one of the organizations that we have invited that will have material there is the Dignity Index. And they talk all about how to have conversations in a way that offer dignity to others. I always like to say respect is earned, dignity is offered, because we are all human beings. We are all flawed, but that does not take away from our value. So this news media outlet guy who made these comments, he has value, he's flawed,
sure,
right? Okay. And also, it's just, as a community, I'm just gonna say, can we just stop pointing our fingers at other people? Can we please just have an opportunity? I would love to bring people to the table to have a conversation. It's going to be hard. We don't get to yell at people. We don't get to do those things, but we get to talk about the things that we care about in our school community so that our schools represent places that represent our community values that are going to help our kids be able to reach their potential. That is what Idaho PTA wants. Or at least that's what I think anyways.
I'm with you. I actually have a fifth grader. So going back to your earlier point about kids leaving the cocoon of elementary school, I was thinking about this just yesterday. I happened to have relatives in town and they were asking oh, is anybody graduating? And I was like, oh yeah, my fifth graders, graduating from elementary school to middle school. And yeah, I would like that sense of welcoming in a classroom. I would like to feel okay. Because I remember going into sixth grade. Okay. I remember this distinctly. And I had older siblings that, were not the best. And so, I was the youngest. So I carried, they're like, oh, you're a Todd. It's oh God. And my sister was also in leadership. So she was super cool. And I was not that popular cool guy. So it was a very, I do not look fondly back on my sixth grade year. And I remember being around people that were way bigger than me, right? I was 11 years old and you have these monster 14-year-olds that are walking around, and that sucked. That was not fun. And again, understanding that you would have somebody that helps shepherd a kid through that or helps parents feel a little bit more comfort. It's we got them. We got them. They're going to be okay. You can let them go. It's okay. I really appreciate that.
And I will say too, like, I think I want to make sure that it's out there. That's not to say that I agree with all the moves that everyone has made in this situation.
This is a damn train wreck.
I do
on
not
a dumpster fire.
I do not agree. I do not agree. And I think right now what is happening is, well, I have heard from a parent in that middle school, and this parent speaks to a lot of other parents. And this parent has said, you know what? I know that the district has made a statement to the news. I know that the district has gone on now, I was like, gone on the Ranch podcast. And I know the district has made a statement to its staff, but the district hasn't engaged with parents. What this parent is hearing is things that's coming home from their child. And this parent's like, listen, I hope that my kid's telling me the truth. And I reached out to the principal to let the principal know, like, hey, how can we, like, as a parent group, respond? How can we support the school community? And I do think that there's something to be said for treating parents like partners instead of customers or clients. And these parents at this moment are saying, what I'm understanding is that I think that this sign, everyone is welcome here, represents what that school community wants. And I think that it's important for participants to be engaged in a way that's going to be helpful. So listen, I'm not a part of the district team. They've not consulted me on anything. Like, that's not my role. And
speaking of people keep asking me, like, if you're an unbiased, how come the West Ada school district isn't talking to them? It's like, I'm not part of I don't know their media strategy. All I know is that they wanted to come on. I had them on. I asked every question I could think to ask. That's it. But again, like, you and I we have no relationship, professional or otherwise. Like, we have kids in West Ada, but like, that's it.
Yes. Yes. And I think what's so important to note, like, is that the adults are the ones that, whoever is at the table, and it's not me and it's not you, but the adults at the table are in this conflict. And at the end of the day, I think it's important for us to remember that the kids are the ones that deal with the consequences of what these parents are, or what these adults and how these adults are engaging. And I think that that's like, as an adult, it's like, okay, let's set aside the pride. Let's set aside the things that keep us separate, right? Let's not let the divide be the thing that impacts the kids and their day-to-day experiences.
Could you imagine being a kid at Lewis and Clark right now? Like, I don't know what, I would not be surprised if there were, protests or demonstrations, or, for instance, there was a walkout at Renaissance High School. And it's like, this is affecting kids, guys. This is like, it's plain as day. We're affecting education, excuse me, and we're affecting, how people feel. And perhaps there are people out there saying, yes, and, to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. But like, okay, like, I don't know if this is like the price of admission for some people. And they're like, I don't care. We need to get this thing addressed. And if that means that kids get involved, that, okay, it's like, look, I don't know how any of this works. I'm not a community organizer. I'm not an advocate. Like, I don't know, but I do know it's not that, like, things are just going normally for, the juniors that are getting ready to take the SATs and they're getting ready for their AP test. Like, imagine being at Renaissance High School, being fewer than 2 months away from an AP test. And you're like, oh, we have to do a walkout now. Like, AP tests are at the beginning of May. We're mid-March. Like, this is not positively affecting their capacity to be the high academic performers that they're trying to be at Renaissance High School.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that I think some kids have been, initially, I think there was some anxiety and angst within the school, right, for these kids. And I do think that it's my understanding that teachers and even administrators in the building are doing what they can to help kids feel welcomed and loved and valued in that school. That's something that I heard recently, and that did feel nice to hear. And also what I think is, like, when I look at this from a communication perspective, but, maybe at a collaborative perspective, where it's like, okay, and also, this is far more than what's happening in that school.
Right.
It's a bigger district issue. And I would argue it's not so much to do with that one thing. It's actually just a symptom of a trust issue, and making sure, and figuring out ways to address that in a way that's going to be productive for our kids. That, like, at the end of the day, I think that's like one of the biggest drivers for you. And I have shared on my social media page, for me, like, my kids in Idaho are my why. and helping them achieve that thing that they want. And I will say, I know that I have had like Superintendent Derek Bubb on my show, and I've heard him on your show. And one of the things that I have heard him say on my show in particular is that, like, look, we want kids to be able to go out and be successful right in what they want to do. Right. And so it's like, from my perspective, this narrative of, kind of this clash back and forth at each other. It's like, it's as if they're missing each other. And that's why I say, like, hey, we got to bring people to the table. We got to figure out how we can partner together to make sure that what's going on in our schools represents our school communities. And to your point at the very beginning, or when we started talking about this, parents have said, we want to partner with schools, and we got to make sure that we're working to create that collaborative model, because that I think is what is going to help our kids have the best possible outcomes, because at the end of the day, that's what I want. And I think that's what you want too. Yeah.
It should go without saying.
Yeah.
The only point of this podcast is to bring people together. That was the initial, middle, and end goal. And that's really hard. I try to stay out of the comments because I like talking to people here, and I invite a lot of people on the show, especially in kind of crisis style moments like this. It's like, listen, if you want to come on and express your opinion or tell me how I've screwed things up or how you would have done it better, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about it. Like, because I'm an idiot. You want to say that I didn't do a good job? Hey, join the club. Like, I think I didn't do a good job too. Like, I'm trying, but what I was saying to one person today is, can you just give the platform a minute to work, right? I had one side on. I have invited all sides. I have people coming on today from all kinds of, it's like, can you just give it a second to work? And inevitably what happens is, whenever the first piece goes out of, let's say you have a two-sided issue, and I've seen this play out several times, whenever the first piece goes out, whoever's against that first piece is like, this is the worst platform in the world. This guy's trash. His podcast is trash. His hat is trash. Like, it's just, and then inevitably when the second side comes out, there's no, hey, good job from the side that initially criticized me. And then I just get the ire of the other side. And it's like, listen, the only way this is going to work long-term is if everybody just hangs on and just let the platform work. Hear from both sides. You don't have to agree with anyone, but just let it work, instead of saying, we need to abolish this whole thing. Not that I would worry, like, stop because of what somebody says on Instagram, but it is one of those things where it's like, to bring people together, it takes time to understand and dive into people's perspectives. And if we don't give people time to express themselves and hear people out, we'll never bring people together.
100% full stop. So a couple of things. One, I really want that news guy to come on who made the comment about your hat and sweatshirt. I'm sitting here right now. I'm saying Matt Todd will have you on his show. I'm like saying that for you because, one, I think there's so much value in saying, like, listen, we all say dumb stuff. We all say things we regret and that are not like, that come out later and you're like, oof, why did I say it like that? That's not actually like what I meant, or maybe it is. And I regret saying it. And so giving people the opportunity to be a human and to say, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up in that area. We as like human beings, we need to offer more humanity, more space for people to be in that way. Right.
We like need to offer more space for humanity to play out, which is like, I think he has better things to do than come on the show. But
no, I don't.
He's 100%. He's 100% welcome.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, he's welcome here. And then the other thing is, like, I know our time is up, and I want to say there's a couple of other things that I know that like we need to talk about later. Like we need to talk about.
Let's talk Wednesday or Thursday. Come back on. Well, let's keep going.
Yep, all the things, because like the more social, less media event.
Yes.
Our bill that didn't get passed. We need to have that conversation.
Yes.
There's been a few minutes, to kind of decompress from that. And so I'm, really grateful always that you have me on as Alexis Morgan with my PTA president hat, and Alexis Morgan, like the Our Kids, Our Schools lady, and
the Idaho lady.
The Idaho lady. In that way, I'm a huge fan of the platform. I think what's probably possible is that my husband's an even bigger fan of the platform. And when I came home the other day and he was walking the dogs, he was wearing his ranch sweatshirt. And I was like, what? You've never asked me for like an Our Kids, Our Schools. And this is what's going on in my mind. And like for him to be able to come on and like talk about his stuff. Anyways, Matt, you and I both know that my husband, like Clinton, is a bigger fan of your show than my show, and that's fine. Like, that's okay.
His show explaining the WWAMI program and how we get more doctors into Idaho published this morning, like an hour ago.
I cannot wait to see it.
And he was so great. Like, he came on and explained, like the medical institution in Idaho is very complex. Getting more doctors in, we have the lowest per capita in the nation. It's like, this is really complex. So I'm very appreciative of him.
Yeah, and I think what's so cool about him and what he values and represents is that, like, what's really cool is that when he graduated from Minico High School, like, so he's an Idahoan, born and raised. When he graduated, he went off like to college, and then he went to medical school. And while he was in medical school, like, we were there in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which, by the way, is the sweetest place on earth, if you didn't know, that there was an article that came out in their local newspaper, and it showed that 6 graduating seniors from Burley High and Minico High School had gone on into the medical field. And I think a majority of those guys have come back to Idaho. And that is what is so awesome. And we need more of that. And that's why he's like such a big advocate of that WWAMI program and people coming back. So anyways, I'm going to go listen to the episode because I'm looking forward to it.
We had a blast for sure. Listen, thank you, Alexis Morgan, PTA president, Our Kids, Our School, and the Idaho lady, whichever handle you want. Come back in later this week because we have a lot of things to talk about. In fact, I talked to the AG's office about the bill this morning as well. So again, a lot of things going on. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for what you do for Idaho, and let's do this again.
Sounds great.